As a non-technical founder, if you want to build something, generally your options are pretty slim. I've been running a development agency for 3 years. I've helped a lot of people build apps, a lot of founders build their first apps. It can be confusing to navigate through these options, and so I thought I might give my 2 cents for any founders who want to get started. First things first, just as a quick overview of each of those options, learning to code is generally very hard in terms of the fact that it will take you a lot of time, and it removes the time that you can use to market the business, to test the app, to bring it to customers, to do customer interviews. It's very challenging, and even if you use no-code solutions or AI, you can build faster, but you don't have an understanding of the product, or you don't have full control of the product, or you are fully dependent on other third-party platforms for the product to run, which is okay at the start especially, but I do think it can be a good way to maybe test a very simple MVP, but you generally don't want to be building a very fleshed out product or app on some kind of no-code platform. It gets really finicky. Learning to code, I think, is not your best option most of the time, but it's usually the kind of last resort. It's an option and it works if you absolutely need it to, but it's very, very hard to make that work alone if you're running a software product kind of business. Like, building an app is a lot of work. Marketing an app is a lot of work. Doing both of those together is a hell of a lot of work, especially if you don't know how to do one of them or both. Yeah, that's really hard, but it is an option if you have no other way. Second one is finding a co-founder. Finding a co-founder is usually a great option, but it's easier said than done, right? The problem is a co-founder needs to be somebody who you really, really, really trust. Co-founder breakup issues can seriously screw over your company. I've seen that happen firsthand. I've seen clients fall apart because of co-founder breakup. It's great in an ideal world to have somebody who fully believes in your app and wants to build with you and trust you and all these things, but it's very hard to find that person, and that can take a long time. And actually, I think between that and hiring, I think the best is actually a mix of both, and I'm going to actually talk about how to do that later in the video. Just bear in mind that if you find the wrong co-founder, if you put your trust in the wrong person, they can totally screw up your business, especially if they're in charge of something like the product itself. They could run away with the code base and you are totally dependent on them, and that really sucks. The third option is hiring, and that's the one which obviously I know about. I've hired agencies in the past, I've hired contractors in the past, I've hired full-time people in the past. I've been hired as a contractor, as an agency. I've done my fair share of rounds in this kind of MVP building world especially. This is where I can offer my 2 cents. And I will say hiring can be a good option in terms of speed. If you want to get things off fast, if you want to move, hiring is usually the way to go. I think that's the main benefit of it, is that you don't have the delay of having to find a co-founder or learn to code yourself, which sometimes can honestly add years to your timeline if you don't know how to code at all. Hiring can be a great way to skip the wait, but it's also pay to play, right? And so if you don't have money, you're going to have trouble hiring people, or at least good people. And so either you're going to end up with a less than ideal product, or you're going to work with people who are not very nice and actually sometimes can even run away with your product and stuff like that, which is really not what you want. It is a great way to skip the line. You just do have to figure out how to pull together a little bit of cash to make that possible. I mentioned earlier, one of the cooler strategies that you can try and do is try and hire while finding a co-founder. And what I mean by that is hiring is fast, and so you can get people to start building stuff quickly. Finding a co-founder is great, but takes really long because you have to find somebody you can trust and, who shares that mission with you and things like that. In the meantime, I think it's great to look for a co-founder while you hire an agency or some kind of contractor to build your app. Generally, hiring people means that you get to leverage their talent, but also by paying them, it's a lot more transactional. And so, yes, you want to find somebody who believes in what you're building, who's somebody you trust for sure, but you're not going to be as worried when there is a dollar amount and there's a contract and the relationship is clearly transactional. It's a lot clearer what each party should be giving to the other. And so it removes a lot of the complexities that you have in co-founder kind of relationships. And so that's why I think in terms of speed, hiring is going to be the best option. As a non-technical founder, if you don't have a co-founder right now, that's going to be how you get your app off the ground fast. I think in the long run, you should be finding a technical co-founder though. If you're running any kind of software product or business, you need to have somebody who understands things. And when you're looking for people to hire, so contractors or agencies to build your MVP, I think it's really important to find people who you can trust and who have attention to detail. So there's 2 key things there. Trust in terms of communication. So do they communicate? When you engage with them, do you know how they're going to be speaking to you, how regularly you get updated, where you get updated? Do you get texts? Do you get calls? Do you do weekly calls? Do you have demos? Like, how does that all work? When I've hired the agencies and really been frustrated with them is when they don't communicate what they're doing. You have no idea what's going on. And so it's really important that they have some kind of standard around how they communicate. And the second thing is that they have an attention to detail. There's nothing more frustrating than imagining something and then you give them designs, you list the features, and they just miss things. They don't read things properly and they have little errors that just shouldn't be there, honestly. I think those are the 2 most important things to look out for. To be honest, I usually say in my proposals to most clients, like at the end of the day, there are hundreds of thousands of construction workers who can probably build the same building with the same instructions. The guys who you pick, it comes down to who are the people that you enjoy working with and whose values align with you. That's really the kind of important part. Are you working with people who you know at the end of the day, like their values are similar to yours and you guys see eye to eye on what are the important things in terms of a relationship and stuff like that? Like that, I think, has come to be always the most important thing. When we don't see eye to eye on what are the values in our relationship and in a working relationship, those deteriorate very quickly and those are the worst experiences usually. When you have a good working relationship with a contractor or an agency, I think they should always be open to helping you off ramp to other developers. So even though you're actually finding a co-founder who maybe is eventually going to replace them, that's fine. They should be perfectly okay with that. They should be open to helping any other engineers understand their code base and things like that. That's completely fine. Now, they're not going to do the hiring process for you, but if you need some advice or something like that, I think that's what they should be open to do. You should be at least somewhat confident that you know that they're giving you the best possible advice, not advice that's just going to benefit them. I think that's really important. If I were a non-technical founder, I think this advice would be useful. And I just speak kind of from what I've seen over the past 3 years in this company. I've seen a lot of people make some pretty bad mistakes. If I can save you the pain, that's great. So feel free to comment any questions.